Folks, we are live for day two, 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, day two of the Family Business Life mm, 9-day transformation challenge. I don't know if y'all can tell Leo's excited again. Yes, it's early in the morning, but as James said, I don't have energy. I'm just generating it.
Yes.
So we are absolutely excited. We got another high performance coach speaker today, the business partner of my man James Powell, who was on yesterday. And listen, I know there's some folks watching and there's some people coming in. It's just a few, it's some people watching on the YouTube stream. Hey, listen, you can click somewhere on there where it says YouTube. If you want to get into the chat, you can click that. This is going to be another phenomenal challenge transformation conversation this morning. And let me say this real quickly. The power of the mastermind is that the mind by itself is good. But when the mind is combined with other minds of intentional value, it becomes a mastermind. Now, watch this. It's a mastermind because it's able to have power, authority, and influence over anything that comes against the mind. You see, and so we are not only absolutely better together, we grow more phenomenally together. I like to say it this way, that you can experience leaps by yourself, but you get quantum leaps with somebody else's mind and growth experiences. So this morning we have a phenomenal guest, LynAnn Weaver. She is also with Awareness Elevation. And just so you remember, Awareness Elevation and Team 3L, we together are bringing you all value through this 9-day transformation challenge, as well as all of the things that you're going to experience and being a part of our community on the back end of this experience. I tell you, it is going to make a major difference in your life. And I am very appreciative of Awareness Elevation for all that they bring in support of this challenge, as well as in support of your growth, development, and acceleration in all things that are excellent. So I'm going to get off of my soapbox and get into this conversation with LynAnn. I want to bring her in. LynAnn, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am fabulous for 5:30 a.m.
Oh man. Now listen, she said 5:30 a.m. That's because she's on a different time zone. We 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about being able to be virtual in some regards, that you get to be with people in different time zones in different places of the world and all those types of things. And so, hey, listen, we get to do it early in the morning as well. But we ain't talking about time like that. We are here to have a conversation about family, business, life mastery, about challenge, about transformation in what it is that we think and believe, and to talk about high performance. So, before we get going, LynAnn, go ahead and get started with some introductory comments. Talk about what it is you're excited about, passionate about. And listen, everybody, get in the chat. Get in the chat. Talk to us. Let us talk back to you while you talk to us. All right, come on, let's go. Go ahead, LynAnn.
Well, I am so excited to be here. This topic is incredibly important to me, of helping people achieve the type of family and work life that they want to have. Everybody talks about balance, and so many people think that it has to be an equal amount of time spent. But it's really more about the quality of time that we're able to spend with the people that we care about and that mean the most to us. Our work life is incredibly important. And so many people define themselves by their work. But being able to look outside of that and find the things that are really going to light our fire and to bring us passion and fulfillment. Family is one of those pieces that is just so critically important. And as Leo had mentioned, I'm a high performance coach. And what we do in high performance is really about helping people achieve heightened levels of success. So success over the norm for the long term
Mm,
without sacrificing health, wellness, or positive relationships along the way.
yeah.
So many people think that in order to achieve career success, that means that you have to sacrifice everything else. And that's just not what the research shows,
Mm,
which is an awesome thing because what if you look at life as a ship and you look at all of the different segments of the ship that really make it be able to float above the water. If we look at career, that's only one part. But if there's a crack or a break or just a complete blow up in any other area of the ship, it's going to slow it down or it might
yeah.
even sink it. And so it's so important to be able to focus on building out our entire life and planning out our entire life in the way that we found to be most successful in business. And that's something that we love to be able to bring in to help support people in their family life development as well.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the high performance definition is without sacrificing, right? And you know, James and you made a post, in some of the promotional content that we were doing for the challenge itself on LinkedIn. And to be very honest, I read James's portion first, where he talked about most people say they would die for their family. And he talked about this yesterday when he was on.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of y'all would actually live, like come fully alive and be present for your family while making the most of the blessing of life you've been given? And the unique part of this is you mentioned in response to his statement, oh, that's such a great question. Are you willing to live for your family? We often think of death as the sacrifice we should be willing to make for our families, but how much more impactful is truly living for someone rather than dying for them? And I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the living sacrifice, right? And
Yeah.
the apostle Paul talks about that in one of his letters and writings, is that the truth of the matter is we need to be living sacrificially, living sacrifices, right? In the sense of what we are really doing is that the sacrifice is in our life and how we live our life with certain focus and perspective. And that's what was really exciting to me, because this challenge is about that very thing, positioning people to be challenged in what they think and believe about family life and business life, not work life, because they're essentially the same, not balance because it doesn't work, it's not achievable, but understanding that I can challenge the norms and be able to say, is this actually helping me achieve the highest performance in that sacrificial commitment? And so let's get into really, I think, the biggest aspect of our conversation today. And that's going to be what you actually said, not just what you said in response to James. So I want to read this, and then we're going to have a conversation around this, because I've yet to have someone with regard to, this concept of family business life mastery articulated in the way that you have, that I found in writing. So let me just, read this to you guys. So this is a post that LynAnn made on her LinkedIn profile. She says, I used to think if I poured my all into work, my professional success would make everything in my life better, until my marriage came crashing down. And I love this because she used my term, crashing. We were both
That's
so
what happened.
focused. Yep. We were both so focused on our careers that there was little time to invest in the relationship. And as our marital challenges grew, man, this is good. Work became a place of escape. Oh, man. This is one of the reasons I tell people, and we said this yesterday, that it is an illusion when business life is thriving and vibing while family life is crashing and burning, because it's only a matter of time before that crashes and burns. But the truth is, what happens is, as you've communicated, is that the workplace and the business life actually does not get the value that it should get and that it was being given, because you're not thriving and vibing in an area you should be. Talk about that a little bit before we get into the rest of it.
Absolutely. So we love to think that we can just separate out our different areas of life. And unfortunately, because of the way that we're wired, because of the way that we're programmed, that's just not how it works. So think of a time where maybe you had an argument with a significant other, or you just had, somebody was having health issues at home, or there was just an immense amount of stress at home. We think that we can just walk through the door at work and all of a sudden cut that off. And everything else that had happened beforehand doesn't bother us. But we are primed to look for things and internalize things based off of our past experiences. And so if we just left an experience where we had an argument with a spouse, or we felt like they didn't value us, and something that they said really triggered us to think that maybe they think that I'm not competent, maybe they think that I'm, not doing enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not blank enough. Well, then when we go into work, that's running in our subconscious program. And so the conversations that we have at work now, if you walk into a meeting and have a person ask a question to clarify something, we might take that personally and look at that as, well, now they're questioning me. That question means that they don't believe me, or that they don't think that I'm smart enough, or I actually know what I'm talking about, or whatever, again, blank enough. And then we take that back home and have that cycle start all over again. And when we come from looking at things through those lenses, until we become aware of what our automatic programming and automatic thought processes are, we run on subconscious programming and just those automatic ways of thinking that aren't necessarily effective for us. And that make it nearly impossible to separate out anything that's going on at home from what's happening in the workplace.
So essentially, you're telling me, as much as you try to separate the two, it's impossible.
Close to.
In the sense that the effect of both environments have a sense of flow and connection between the two, which
Correct.
I'm going to be talking later this week in the challenge about one of the aspects of accurate beliefs, which does deal with flow. Okay. From the standpoint of when you understand family life and business life in their true nature, right? This goes back to one of the things that we talked about in regard to the high performance mindset, and that is the importance of reframing things, rephrasing them appropriately, right? And one of the things, let me get back to your post, because as I was talking, there was something you said. I want to go ahead and read through this, because you make a statement here that I think should be a part of our talking about reframing and the mindset. So she says, and this was like pivotal. It's like in the third paragraph. So let me get to it. I thought we were supposed to just inherently know how to be a good partner. Huh. How many people think that? And that if we needed outside resources like education, personal growth trainings, or coaching, that meant something was wrong with me. Wrong. I like how she busted up immediately. We invest so much into learning how to be better at business, college courses, trainings, etc. Yet many of us invest very little into our most important, I like to say most pivotal, most vital relationships, yet wonder why we struggle in our home lives. I was like, this is killer. This needs to be the poster for everything that is family business life mastery. What would change? This was powerful right here. What would change if we invested a fraction, just a little, of what we spent on our professional development and learning how to improve our relationships, become better parents, and what strategies to use so we can enjoy our lives? The answer is everything could change. I like to say more so everything would change. It certainly did for me. Science shows when we have healthier relationships, we are more likely to perform better in every other area of our life. Helping people discover the tools and strategies to improve their family life so they can also improve their business life and vice versa is a key component of becoming a high performer. This is why Awareness Elevation is participating in the Family Business Life Transformation Challenge with Leo Simpson and 9 other experts to create an experience to transform your work life and home life. I'm going to read everything else because people need to hear how you felt about this. In only 2 hours a day, listen to how you communicated this. This 9-day challenge may be the difference maker to help you thrive both personally and professionally. Don't wait to take action until your marriage is teetering on the brink of divorce or until your kids ask you why you love your job more than them. Okay, y'all see why I brought this in. Oh my goodness. Here's what's so important. We talked about reframing, rephrasing, transforming the mindset.
Mhm.
But the most important piece, I think, that helped to really link that thought process is the investment piece. How many people, watch this, will invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to make millions of dollars, but will not even invest $100 or even 1,080 minutes over the course of 9 days to transform their family life, understanding that it will transpose into exponential value in their business life. Talk about
Absolutely. We you summarize that so well.
that.
We like we do. I mean, I you know spent, oh gosh, I couldn't even think of the amount on education, continuing education, going to conferences to teach me how to be a better leader, a better manager, more in depth knowledge and background around the areas of focus that I had previously or currently. But it wasn't until I started investing in personal growth and development that I saw a true change. And when we look at what really makes us thrive versus
Mm,
just survive, I had a text from a friend actually last night, and she said, I just feel like I'm in total survival mode right now.
mm,
And we feel like we're in survival mode when our external environment controls the way that we feel and respond to situations.
mm,
What a lot of people don't realize, because this isn't what we're taught in traditional education, but we actually have the capability to control our internal environment in a way that actually allows us to better influence and
mm.
navigate our external environment.
Ooh, talk about that.
So we you mentioned reframing. And that becomes so powerful because the way that we actually respond to situations, most people think that something happens and then I have an emotional response and then therefore I just respond based off of
Yeah.
whatever just happened to me. It's a little bit more complex than that. So we have that stimulus or that experience that just happened. And then what happens from our mindset perspective is it goes kind of through this diagram, if you would, of what is our past reference points that
Mhm, mhm,
maybe make us of or wanting us to avoid pain or lead us to something that's going to bring us more pleasure or enjoyment. So
mhm,
if we look at a really simplistic example of if when you were little imagine that you love dogs, but then one of them actually attacked you and bit you.
Yeah.
And you ended up in a lot of pain. So, say you're walking through a park as an adult and you start seeing this dog just charging at you. Well, your past reference point is that dog bit me. And then it goes into the beliefs that are formed because of
Yeah.
those past reference points of I, this dog had previously bit me. So my belief is that all dogs are mean.
Yeah.
And then we give,
Especially one that's chasing after me.
yeah, exactly. Then from those beliefs, we actually formulate meanings for those situations. And so if I believe that all dogs are mean, the meaning that I'm likely going to give the situation is that that dog wants to hurt me.
Mm.
And so then I have an emotional response based off of, I'm afraid this dog is going to hurt me. And so when I say emotional response, it's really just a neurochemical response that comes from the meanings that we give to situations, the types of thoughts that we have, and really the experiences that through the lens that we're looking at it. So we have that emotional response, which the neurochemicals that are released can either turn on or turn down, or upregulate or deregulate different areas of our brain that are going to allow us to act in a way that's going to be most beneficial for the meaning that we give to that situation. So in this case, it's going to activate our fight or flight response because we think the dog is going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And so from that emotion, it kind of goes through this filter of based off of the meaning that I've given to it, the beliefs that I have, and the past experiences that I have. Is the reaction that I'm experiencing, feasible or not? And is it something that I need to act on or not? If yes, then
Mm-hmm.
we make a decision and have a response. Now, flip that to where if you were little and all of the experiences that you had with a dog were that they were fun and they were playful and you absolutely loved them. Well, now your belief is that all dogs are playful and fun.
Yeah.
And so the meaning that you give to that same dog charging at you is, oh, this dog probably wants to play with me. So that emotional response that you have is one of excitement and, just happiness. And so you're more likely to have the response of, now I'm going to bend down and play with the dog versus running away.
Absolutely.
And we do that in
Absolutely.
every single situation, but it happens this fast. So most of us aren't aware of it.
Yeah.
But once we learn to identify our past reference points, so those past experiences that may be influencing the way that we see the world, the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see other people, we can start to look at the beliefs that we have about different situations as they occur.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by doing that, we then have the choice to question the meaning that we're giving and assigning to those different experiences. And that choice of reassigning the meaning actually gives us the control and the power to change the way that we react or
Mm.
respond. So it's really going from a place of reaction to giving you the power to choose a response.
Mm.
And
You know,
that can be so powerful, especially in relationships,
you're on
because
it.
if your significant other says something that's really hurtful, you can say, well, one, do I know for sure that the meaning that I'm giving to this experience
Yeah.
is really true? Like, do they really mean by asking me that question that they think that I'm stupid or they think that I'm fat or they think that I'm, not good enough or
Yeah.
whatever? Or maybe not. And if we can ask ourselves that question as we start to feel that emotional response, we can completely stop and change the type of neurochemicals that are being released, which changes the emotion that we feel. So we can go from anger to a neutral state or to happiness just by changing the meaning that we give to those situations. And that's the power of reframing.
Oh man. You said a mouthful. You said like 10 different things. I was like, it was like, oh, she's on it. And so, there's a number of different ways that we could, shift our conversation or even progress it. I think that it would be beneficial to go into something that I talk about a lot. I actually kind of introduced this yesterday on the lunch and learn time, where I talked a little bit about the fact that we are three-part person. We are spirit, soul, and body, right? And then in our soul, we're also three parts, which is mind, will, emotions. And that's that area that you were actually talking about, where what happens is we experience stimuli from our environment. And the stimuli from our environment is actually an emotional response. It more so resonates with our emotions initially, in the sense, listen carefully, in the sense that our emotions require us to respond to what we have just experienced. Here's what I tell people: when you get to the place that you have an emotional response from your environment, what's important is you need to understand what your emotions are designed for at that point. And at that point, your emotions are designed to be like data points and not decision points. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. You got to understand that there is a flow within the soul, meaning you got mind, which is thoughts, then you got will, which is beliefs and desires, and then you have emotions, which is, of course, your feelings, which intends for you to take action upon them, which is why you move in a certain way, right? So here's what happens. What happens is when you think a certain way, you believe a certain way, and you have desires of a certain level, which actually generate energy in motion, right? But what happens when we experience things externally, it impresses upon our feelings or our emotions. And what we're supposed to do is say, okay, now that I've experienced this, let me roll this up to my thoughts and identify how to process it. What is this? Not let me just, ooh, dog coming, let it, oh, it's going to bite me, or dog coming, it's going to be playful, because that can be a problem too. It might be a dangerous dog that you need to actually put some hands on and not just love on, right? You might need to love in a different way, okay? But you've got to process it from the standpoint that the emotions are data points that are designed to be analyzed, and they must require reasoning to give focus to them, so then it communicates what you actually are supposed to do. And I like to say this: there's two things that I say. It's kind of like a cousin statement. It's go from frustration to focus as quickly as possible, and go from feelings to facts as quickly as possible. And that's ultimately saying we've got to understand how our emotions were designed to yield us value, and not be decision points primarily, but data points that help to inform how we focus. And so when you all deal with high performance in regard to, specifically, you gave the example of your friend talking about she just feels like she's surviving and not thriving. Like, what are things we say to people in those moments to help them get to that point to where they are beyond these peak situations and they're now shifting into the high performance experience?
Sure. So, bringing back in a couple of the things that you said, uh, the way that we think and those emotional responses that we have, really, it's habits. Our
Yeah.
thoughts and the thought patterns that we typically have are a habit, which means that we can also change those. However, it's not very easy. And so when we get into that place of just feeling like we're surviving, a lot of times you can consider the 6 basic human needs,
Mm.
which we all have a need for certainty or comfort. There's also the need for some variety or a little bit of uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
as well as significance and love and connection. Those are the 4 basic needs that have to be met for just general survival. And there are also 2 others that then allow us to thrive. But
Mm.
unless those first 4 are met, it's really difficult for us to move into a place of thriving. So the 2 additional needs are the need for constant growth.
Mm.
That can be through personal growth, professional growth, just growing in the relationship, feeling like things are expanding, improving, and elevating. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what we do in high performance through habit change. High performance is about identifying the habits that are going to be most effective for you moving forward, and being able to identify those that aren't, and how to effectively replace the habits that are ineffective for you with ones that are going to serve you most appropriately moving forward. The last need is contribution.
One of my
And
favorite.
so when we are so focused on, I'm not feeling significant in my relationship, if that need's not met, it gets really difficult for us to go into the workplace and make a tremendous contribution, which if you're looking at it from a monetary perspective, if we're not contributing a great amount of value in the workplace, we're also probably not going to be getting very much value back. Or there may be a risk of us not getting that value back for very long, especially in our
Absolutely.
current in our current economic conditions. And so it's so important to be able to know what your basic needs are, also how to meet them for yourself, but also how to bring other people in and help explain to them, communicate to them what your needs are and how they can support you in those. And those communication techniques to be able to do so are so imperative. And those are also pieces that we really work on in high performance is how do I communicate more effectively
Yeah.
with my significant other, with my family, with my colleagues, but most importantly with myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the way that our external relationships are all founded on first our relationship with self.
Yeah. You know, you you got a lot of triggers in here because you are triggering stuff in Leo that I don't talk about a whole lot in, sessions and things of that sort like this, but I do deal with a lot with coaching clients and training. And there are two concepts that I share. One is the three C's of existence, and then the three C's of life. And I'm giving them to you in brief. The three C's of existence are creation, connection, and contribution. All right.
Mm.
And those are the things that are the highest level of even why we exist, and they set the stage and the tone for our existence. All right. I'm not going to go into detail. But what's interesting is that third one in the existence is the first one in the three C's of life. In other
Mm.
words, in the three C's of our living, which is contribution. And then you have compensation, and then you have consumption. And what I love to tell people is you need all three of these in order for there to be value in life. If you are going to contribute, there's got to be some compensation. This was an important concept for me with regard to family life crashing and burning. Like there are some people, they're thriving and vibing in business and they're killing it in business financially and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, I'm doing it because I got to make sure my family is good. My thought process was like, man, I don't care about that money stuff. I just care about contributing, making a difference. And it's like, shoot, my family is going to be good because God going to take care of us. Well, if you don't ensure that the transactions where you're making transformations have some exchange of value, you're not valuing the person you're doing what you're doing for, nor are you valuing yourself and anybody who benefits from it. Okay, that's another conversation. That was a rant for Leo. But the thought process is, contribution is necessary because everything else flows in connection with that. But if you don't have compensation, you don't have a true means of reward and slight recognition for contribution. And then if you don't have consumption, then you don't have this enjoyment and this expression of excitement of life from the context of both of them. But here's what's important: you must have all of them. All of them must exist for life to have value, but you can only prioritize one. If you prioritize consumption, you're just a selfish cat. I mean, you're just all about what you want. If you prioritize compensation, it's all about your identity. It's all about what it is you receive, how you feel. And this all goes back to ego. James was talking
Yep.
about yesterday. We got to let go of ego. And those two, when you prioritize compensation and consumption, it's all about ego. And when you prioritize contribution, it's all about what you give. It's all about the value you extend, which puts us in a position to where there's a passage that Paul talks about in a letter that he wrote to the Philippian church. And he said two things. One, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. And then he goes on and clarifies it. Let each one of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interests of others. That is a perfect connection to the reality of contribution, compensation, and consumption. Meaning this: You significantly consider others more than yourselves by ensuring that there's value you contribute, but ensuring that there is value you get to have by embedding in their significant interest your interest in an appropriately regarding manner. So you don't eliminate yours, you just put yours in a perspective with theirs as you prioritize theirs to reciprocate. Now, let's talk about this thing.
Yeah. What you just described is basically the definition of what that unconditional love looks like.
Yes, come on.
And when we are giving from a place of, I want to contribute, I know that if I'm secure in myself, if I love myself, if somebody else's perspective may not, it may be important to me, but it's not going to determine the way that I view my blessings or my gifting or who I am or my capabilities, or even more importantly, what my limits are or are not.
Yeah.
When we can remove that and come from that place of unconditional love and unconditional giving, it gives us the opportunity to not only improve our home life. So many people think about unconditional love from the place of how God loves us, but that's also how God tells us to love each other. But we first have to love ourselves from that same place before we can love others as ourselves. And when you look at relationships, there's really 3 levels of relationships. And you've touched a little bit on these, but I want to call them out specifically. The first level that so many people operate from is a place of selfish love. My needs aren't met. Those 6 basic human needs, 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe all 4, aren't met. And so I'm in a place of survival. I'm looking out for myself. Everything is about me. It goes back to the ego. But we're also wired for survival and thriving. And so by creating that environment of looking for self-protection, that's where we become more selfish. So the more that we can understand ourselves, understand our past experiences, and learn to change the meanings that we give to those experiences so that we can learn to truly love ourselves first. We have that ability to then step into a place of unconditional love for others, because it's not based off of what their actions are or are not. It's, I will love you and I will support you. And along this journey, I'm going to continue to support myself. This doesn't mean accept abuse. This doesn't mean accept mistreatment. But what it does mean is I will still love you. I will still contribute. I will still work on all of those C's that you just mentioned. And first and foremost, I will view myself in a positive light. So therefore I can view others in a positive light as well.
I told you you're here triggering me. You are triggering Leo. You know, what's interesting. So I got to ask this question, and that is, in your post, you said, I used to think. What is it that helped you to change what you think? What is it that caused you to say, for example, you said, I thought I was supposed to just inherently know, right? And you, in this expression of what you used to think and what you thought, like, what did you do to begin to challenge what you thought to transform what you did?
That is a very loaded question.
Let's talk about it. We got to have more conversations than this, because this right here, I'm like, we don't have enough time.
So after my divorce, I hit an emotional rock bottom. And it was every day, just like what my friend had texted me yesterday about feeling like she's just in this place of survival. That was exactly how I felt. I was going into work, we would have meetings. I worked in healthcare administration, and so our meetings would start around 6:30 a.m. and oftentimes I would have meetings until about 8 o'clock at night, and then I would still have work to do after that. And so it was this place of, I recognized that I used to be incredibly effective.
Yeah.
And I was really focused, super productive, and then everything started shifting at home. And I could not focus the way that I used to be able to. I was so distracted by the internal dialogue that was going on that I didn't even recognize or realize at the time, because I didn't have a certain level of self-awareness about all of the things that we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
And so what happens now that I've, gotten into this field, what I have found is that when we have all of this internal conflict or all this internal strife and that stress, it actually starts to regulate the areas of our brain that don't allow us to focus the way that we used to. So if we are in a happy state, it actually upregulates or turns on those regions of the brain that allows us to be more productive, allows us to focus more, allows us to be more empathetic and relate to people in a different way. When we're operating from that stress response or place of survival, it turns down all of those areas. So we're not using them at the full capacity, which also negatively impacts our, productivity or our contribution at work. As much as we'd like to think it doesn't, it really does. And so I started noticing some of these things in myself and realized that I can't continue like this. Either I'm, really did hit a plateau and there's absolutely nowhere to go, or I need to figure out a different way. I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to set my ego down and say, there have to be resources out there that are available to be able to help me know how to process this and know how to improve it. And I don't want to just survive. God didn't create us to just survive. He created us to thrive, to be joyful, to be joy-filled. And I had gone to a personal growth and development conference that completely changed my life and helped me see where I was having those blocks, how my past experiences were playing into my current environment and the way that I was interpreting our relationship and the way that we were communicating. And it gave me such a different perspective, not only on myself, but on others. And going through that experience was really kind of that foundational component that launched this rocket ship of diving into all of the concepts that we talk about in high performance, but also from a place of, how do I focus on becoming more self-aware?
Yeah, I love awareness.
Just like if you were to have a golf coach, it's difficult to totally analyze your swing. Well, when did I really break my wrist? Okay, I might be able to feel that. But if you have a video camera on you, or if you have a coach who's watching you, you can make those little micromillimeter shifts that are going to completely change the trajectory of the ball. And instead of being off in the rough, you might actually end up on the fairway, or heck, who knows? Maybe you'll end up on the green in the first shot.
Wow.
So that's the same. It's the same concept of having a coach. That's why it's so important to have community around you who are like-minded, who are also working on their personal growth, their level of self-awareness. But to have that coach who's well-versed and knowledgeable in the things that are going to make the biggest difference, the biggest pivotal difference in your life by just making those minor tweaks. And it's not something that many or any of us are able to do without that external perspective. So what process I went through after that was, okay, I realized that I need to be surrounded by people who are going to be able to support, encourage, and build me up, and also call me out and hold me accountable if I start sliding back into my old, ineffective habits. And I use the word ineffective, not good or bad, for a reason. When we put those terms good or bad on ourselves, it shapes the way that we see ourselves, our capabilities, and what's possible to change. If we look at things as feedback on ineffective versus effective, well, if it's not effective, what do we need to do to change it to become more effective? And it's one of those small reframing tools that we can use to help us see ourselves in a more positive light. Jumping back to just that process, it was surrounding myself with a new community
Yeah.
of people who are also working on their level of self-awareness, who wanted to encourage me as much as I wanted to encourage them. And by continuing to do the work on a daily basis, whether that was through reading, whether it was through listening to podcasts, whether it was working with my mentor or my coach, whether it was attending additional conferences, because if you get to one level, like I said, that ability to thrive also requires our ability to be growth focused.
Yeah.
And there is no place of I've arrived. If there is, that's our ego talking.
Talk about it.
That's, if we're not growing, we're dying.
Oh man.
And so with what James had said yesterday and on his post of, how many of us would die for our families, but it's more important to truly
How
live for
many
them.
would live?
If
Absolutely.
we want to live for our family, we need to continue growing. And
Oh
it
man.
was that commitment to continuous growth and finding the resources, the community, the support, and the experts to help me along that journey that truly changed my life.
You said again a mouthful and you triggered me again. Here's so there's two things that really stood out to me in regard to what you shared. And here's how I would phrase them. One, you talked about something that I mention quite often, which is in regard to when you eliminate family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing, which of course, business life thriving and vibing is an illusion. You alluded to that because your productivity was suffering, right? It was struggling, even though you were getting results. That's where the vibing and thriving takes place. You were really not as engaged. And so I always say to my clients and to anyone who I share about the family business life mastery concept is that when you eliminate this problem, you will experience not only a thriving and vibing in family life and business life together, but your productivity and profitability will be more exponentially valuable, right? And that's one of the things you spoke of. But the other thing that gets you to that point is you've got to be in the right environment. You talked about making sure you put yourself in the community that would provide you that. And here's the thing, it goes back to what James said yesterday, letting go of the ego, because the ego, it's what's going to keep you from making the adjustments. We had some things happening yesterday with regard to this stream, with regard to the connections and things of that nature. So a lot of things that was going on, and there was a lot of feedback that was given. Look at what Leo did and the people who were on this side with him. It was a matter of, hey, let's make the adjustments. Let's do what we need to do. What is it that needs to be focused? Why? Because we're focused on high performance. We're not focused on peaking. We're focused on thriving and vibing. Exactly. And so when it comes down to it, you you have made this conversation to where it's like we got to have another one of these. I might have to bring you on for one
Totally
of
up
the
for that.
I might have to bring you on for one of the lunch and learns, and we actually talk about one of the subject matters during the lunch and learn, because I'm serious. Your personal experience, and one of the things I love about our collaboration, awareness elevation, and Team 3L, and Team 3L is going to be transforming this year. It's going to be something else. So, y'all gonna have to see that. You got to be a part of the community to see that. But what I love about the collaboration is it is a perfect picture of how we have two different lanes that we're walking in, but they are able to intersect in a way that we don't take away from what each other is doing. As a matter of fact, it adds so much value to it, such that there's this bona fide validation and confirmation of it to where it's like, oh yeah, we got to do this. And as you were talking, it really resonated with me And it's not that I didn't know that what we're doing is valuable or powerful. It really resonated with me how valuable this challenge and the transformation, the 9 days are. It is so vitally pivotal for people to have spaces like this, to have the content created for them to access, to have the commitment and focus from someone to say, I've got to do this for someone to be transformed. And one of the things that I guess we'll kind of shift in going down into closing this out is, let's talk about the importance of not only being a part of a community, but also creating a community. Now, before you answer, I want there to be the thought process in everybody who's watching, who's listening, everything. I want you to think about it from the perspective of, there are so many people that say, why are you doing events? Why are you
Mm.
doing challenges? Why are you hosting seminars and conferences? And why are you coaching people? Hey, listen, you made a case for all of that. But there are people who think that. They're thinking that these things are just ways that people are trying to make money, right? Don't get me wrong, there's money in it, okay? Listen, anybody listening, you need to know no transformation takes place. You know, I be trying to put words together. Y'all got to tell Leo be patient. No transformation takes place without a transaction. I'm just telling you, it is a fundamental, universal law. And I'm sure James would absolutely agree if he was on here, because he loved talking about universal laws. But let's talk about the importance of not just having a community, being a part of a community, but the value of, once you've experienced that, when you're awakened to the value of it and even the contribution you can make, the importance of you potentially creating a community.
Absolutely. They say, the your net worth is in your network.
Mm,
And we often resemble, from a earnings potential, the five people who are closest to us.
mm,
And so when you look at that, if you were to be able to create and choose your community
yeah.
of those five people, or 25 people, or 50 people, who are also going to be elevating your personal growth, holding you accountable to the things that you say you want to do, that you want to accomplish, and to be able to help bring that outside perspective in on, you know, have you checked your ego today?
Mm,
Where is your response really coming from? Is this in alignment with what you're really wanting? Are you behaving in a congruent manner with what you just told me you wanted, which is an improved family life, which is better at my business, which is improving my sales, or whatever your goals are? As you start to grow that community of more like-minded individuals who are going to help you grow, the entire ship raises and everybody gets elevated.
yeah,
And
everybody.
then that's why community is so important. And one of our 4 C's of champion leadership is community. And that's one of the foundational components, because without that group of people to help you see things outside of yourself, to be able to help encourage you, motivate you, for you to feed back into and to contribute to.
Yeah.
So if you're growing with and contributing to and with other people, think about how much more impactful that's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you said something about choosing the community. And this is, I think, a very pivotal perspective related to mastery of family life and business life. In this, we don't get to choose our family all the time. Now, we do get to make a decision on the spouse we have, right? We don't necessarily get to make a decision on the children we have. you know, you don't necessarily get to make a decision on the in-laws that you have, the siblings, And so majority of family life, you don't really get to choose them, but you get to make a decision on and then choose how you engage with them. And that is based on what you think and believe, right? One
Yes.
of the things about this challenge that is so important, and again, I'm serious, LynAnn, we have got to have more conversations, not just another conversation. We have got to have more conversations in order to help extract this value and make it available for people. But one of the things that's interesting is the true thought process is you've got to be willing to challenge what you think and believe so that you can understand how it's affecting you. I've started in the lunch and learn session talking about the misleading beliefs, which are the cause of family life crashing and burning. And the first one was, balance or work life balance, trying to achieve balance. And the main thing I kept really emphasizing outside of balance was this: think about the topic of the session. And the session topic was, um, does balance make sense? Think about that regarding anything you think and believe. Does this make sense? And not only does it make sense in a general aspect, but does it make sense for what I am capable of, what my potential is, what it is I'm seeking to achieve, what it is that's important? And ultimately, I think that one of the things that needs to be challenged is this idea that these soft things or soft skills or emotionally intelligent aspects require less investment. Let me tell you, if you are listening today, especially if you are experiencing family life crashing and burning while there's a perception of business life thriving and vibing, you are really more inclined to benefit the most when you invest more in the soft skills than
Mhm.
in the hard skills. James talked about that. He talked about focusing on intention versus mechanisms. So as we're rounding this up, like, take it on, give us some closing thoughts, give us some offer, all the good stuff. Just let us know. Let us know.
Something that's important for people to be aware of is the impact that happiness makes
Mm,
on our ability to generate revenue, to be productive, to do all of the things that we want to do. When we support our family life and invest in our family life and building those strong relationships with friends as well, um, it allows us to become happier. And there was a study titled The Happiness Advantage that actually found that those who are in a positive state of mind, so positive neurochemical state or emotional state, are 37% better at sales, 31% more productive.
mm,
And healthcare is my background, so it's a stat that is important was physicians are 19% faster at determining an accurate diagnosis than those who
mm,
are in a negative or even a neutral state of mind. Now, multiply that out across your entire work life. If you're happier at home and you're happier in your work life, look at what happens from a productivity perspective. If your team is 37% better at sales, what happens?
mm,
So that's a monetary way to look at the importance of this subject. But even more importantly than that, it's how do I want to live? Do I want to just survive or do I really want to thrive?
yeah.
And a couple questions going into a challenge week to challenge yourself with each day is with that intention setting that James was talking about. What are three words that I can use to describe the relationship that I want to have with each person in my family?
Mm,
As well as what are three words that I can describe the type of relationship and who I want to be and who I want to bring to the table in my work life?
mm,
Knowing those and identifying those helps us kind of prime our brains and to start responding in a way that's congruent with what our intentions are.
mm,
The other piece in
mm.
this is
Talk about
whenever
it.
we're triggered, ask yourself, what can I be grateful for? Or what am I grateful for about that person? And you mentioned an offer. So we'll be highlighting a special bonus and special gift for everybody who's participating in this challenge that ties into some of the programs that Leo's offering. And so we'll have more information available at the end of the 9-day challenge.
Mm. LynAnn, I know what I'm going to do. So we have 3 VIP experiences that are Q&A based. and I'm going to get with you after this to talk about which of those, if not all of them, you can be a part of, because I think together we can have a conversation, but also create a question and answer experience for people in a magnificent way. And the crazy part is, I was thinking about this yesterday about doing something different than I had planned. And oh man, see, this is why you got to just go with it sometimes. And so, you all heard LynAnn. We're at the top of this hour, and we're not going to do a hard stop because we want to make sure you get some good value in between here. Larry just said to us, you saw me post that on the screen, another fantastic morning of learning. Thank you, Leo and LynAnn, for sharing your experience and knowledge with us all. God bless. God bless you too, Larry. um One of the things that you did, the offer, you know, what people don't understand is, and we come from a connection as far as, you know, with Pete Vargas and his perspective of other people's stages and things of that sort, and the value of really providing offers, and him talking about Zig Ziglar's communication of, you know, the speaking part made a difference, but the real impact was with the products and services and the experiences that people had over time with them. And it's important to go back to that in relation to what you've been saying, is the importance of community, right? That community is so vital and so valuable. And so, listen, guys, you have the opportunity to join our community and on a monthly basis be a part of what it is that we're doing from the context of family, business, life mastery. So, if you want to join now, you have the ability to do that down below. If you're on the actual either VIP page on the Team 30 website or the general admission page. And there will also be some information in the YouTube videos for those who have access to them to be able to access this as well. But if you're staying with the challenge, you're going to get that information regardless at the very end. So, with that being said, I want to make sure we close out with a unique thought process, something that you were saying that really, you know, got my attention. And that is, you know, it's very, very, very important that we understand family life in the sense of, you were talking about those questions you ask yourself, right? And one of the things about those questions that you were asking with regard to what is it that the three things that I want to see in my family life and these relationships and this perspective and so on and so forth. And what I think we may talk about in one of our conversations is how you take that into programming and reframing, right? When you answer that question, then what do you do with that information? How do you get that information to impact you and help you, and you be able to use it and leverage it? Oh man, this is going to be exciting. You did a lot of triggering today, and I was over here containing myself. Oh my goodness. I was containing myself. I was like, I can't answer everything. I can't respond to everything. But that is the power of mastermind, guys. Get you somebody to mastermind on the subjects like this. Get you someone to connect with. Become a part of a community that's going to help you move in the direction to be able to address these things. And so, listen, we're getting ready to close it down. I want to appreciate you for being here. More than anything, I want to appreciate you for being here for you. Okay. And then, in appreciating you for being here for you, I want you to know, don't stop. Keep going with the challenge. Keep going with the transformation. Come back 12:30 Central Standard Time today. We're going to be talking about I can't remember what is it? I can't remember. Let me look it up real here. It's a question. Is one more important than the other? And listen, this was a perfect setup, everything that LynAnn and I talked about and all of that. And trust me, yesterday we talked about balance, why that's not valuable, why it's not achievable. You can go back and check that out again. But today we're going to be dealing with, is one more important than the other? More so, is family life more important than business life? And we gonna get into the nitty gritty of it. So, LynAnn, you got any last things that you want to say before we go?
Stay on with the challenge, guys. Ask yourself those questions, set your intention, and see how your relationships start to improve.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, thank you so much, LynAnn, for
Thank
being
you.
here, for bringing the value, for bringing that high performance energy. A little different than James, but man, I was like, she got that quiet energy. It's like, you guys be well, take care, and we will see you on the other side of the transformation. Take care.
You too.